inquiry-based method of teaching. This method of teaching in which learners try to find out something unknown to them, discovery. The learners try to find out what? Something unknown to them. Discovery, inquiry-based teaching. And this approach is learner-centered. This approach is what? Learner-centered. The intention is to develop in the learner the attitude such as inquisitiveness, objectivity, and the ability to undertake an objective observation of the environment and the natural phenomenon. I said this approach is capable of enhancing the acquisition of critical and reflective thinking skills, which we consider crucial for what? Entrepreneurship. In an inquiry approach, learners are encouraged to initiate learning by asking questions based on what they observe practically in a particular concept. And I said the fundamentals of an inquiry approach are objective observation and question. And inquiry approach is efficient in the development of skills. Now, what are the activities required of learners in the discovery inquiry method? What are the activities? Discovery involves cognitive processes like observing, clarifying, measuring, predicting, describing. Inquiry approach seeks the participation of the learner for solving some problems. It requires productive thinking. The student needs sufficient background in the subject. Discovery learning demands that learners learn by themselves. That is what the curriculum is stressing in our time. Discovery learning. Discovery learning. Now, what are the roles of the teacher in discovery or inquiry learning? It is the role of the teacher to select those activities. While you are planning your lesson, you now select activities which will provide meaningful participation to the learner. I say it's the responsibility of the teacher to do what? In inquiry learning, the teacher selects the activity. That's why we are talking about what? Techniques. Techniques, pedagogical techniques that will do what? Encourage creativity. So you see, as a teacher and a professional, you sit down and think, what activities do I inculcate in this lesson that will do what? Encourage the creativity, the ingenuity of a child. All the students we have in our class, they are different and they are unique. They are all unique. So you think of activities that you inculcate in that lesson. That is your technique. That is now your pedagogical what? Technique, your strategy that will help to develop creativity in that child. You select those activities to match the level of the learners and also to match what? Their background. Not something that is too abstract for a child. Like the speaker of yesterday said, a child of 2 years, and you ask the child, 3 minus 5. Will you understand? Do you subtract 5 from 3? You know? So you select activities that match the level of the learner, and then you arrange them in sequence, from simple to complex. In inquiry learning, the teacher functions as a facilitator, a motivator. In inquiry and discovery learning, the teacher functions as you set the stage for the students to do what? To learn. And you take the role of answering questions, because inquiry learning involves inquisitiveness. The children will ask what? Questions. So you take the role of asking questions that are generated by the students. I won't go into that. Guided inquiry, types of inquiry, free inquiry, modified inquiry. Now, what are the advantages of the inquiry method? Inquiry method increases a child's intellectual ability. I will give us a sample of a lesson note, and it's constructed using inquiry method. So inquiry method, it increases the child's intellectual power. The learner develops his mind by using that inquiry approach. And it is based on, inquiry approach. Inquiry approach is based on an intrinsic motivation of the child, not something external. So by practicing this approach, the child is able, the students are able to develop the ability to sense the relevance of different variables. It improves their intuition, inquiry learning. Improves the intuition of the child. Let's stop there for inquiry learning and then go on to the project method. Another pedagogical approach to encourage creativity. The project method. Project method is a kind of individualized learning. Project method. The learner performs a series of activities with guidelines from the teacher. How many of us have ever given our students projects? Let's interact. Yes, please. Stand up and help us. What was the nature of the project? Project method.
I teach biology. That was last year when I taught biology. So we got the students to do a skeleton using a rabbit. We got the rabbit, got the, what do you call this? Hydrogen peroxide. And then we cooked it. They are the ones that cooked it. We have the gas burner there in the laboratory. Brought the pot, we cooked it until it got tender. I have a loud voice. I'm sure everyone can hear me. It was tender. But before we cooked it, we had it skinned by the students. We actually, the two teachers, we did nothing. We just stood there to supervise them. They skinned the rabbit and then cooked it, got it tender. Then after that, they decided to scrape off the flesh from the bones. And then after doing all of that, we had to leave it and soak it in the hydrogen peroxide overnight to get a sharp, clear color. And then we got them, some of them, to construct the case so that we could have it stand in the biology lab. We did it, we supervised them, we made sure we didn't touch, just told them this is what you're expected to do, we would like you to do this, go there, go there, go there, and they did it perfectly well. Dried the hide, the fur of the rabbit, and then they brought it back. We told them to leave it there, and then it's out there for them. So we've supervised that.
If it wasn't a workshop, I would have said, put your hands together. Is it out of place? No, it's not out of place. Yes. That's what we are talking about. In the process of skinning that rabbit, those children were learning what? They were learning. Sometimes you mention tendons. A child has never seen a tendon. He does not even appreciate it. But while he was skinning, that can lead to inquisitiveness. That's discovery. Please now, what is this? I believe they ask questions like that. Do we understand? Yes. And that child is learning. Some of them have never seen a cervical vertebrae. It's all there. Neural spine. All those things, they will see the same truth. In the process of just doing that, that's a project. You know? Oh. So it exposes children to what? It exposes learners to real life problems. The project method. The project method exposes children or exposes learners to real life problems, which they solve by thinking and working together. What we are saying is that this workshop is to enable us, when we go back to our various schools, we should try and integrate some of these methods in our teaching while you are planning your note of lesson. Choose to use a method that will bring out the ingenuity of that child. Choose a method. So project method offers the learner opportunity to do what? To learn skills, depending on the subject area. Give them a project. And then it also offers the teacher the opportunity to learn the ingenuity, the originality of a child. In the arts class, you can just give it. I saw a child that made a portrait, an art student. Do you understand? He made a portrait of a man, just in secondary school, a secondary school child. I would have thought that that is reserved for the art students in the universities. But this boy made a portrait of the proprietor of the school. I was amazed. projects. Project method, it can help you develop the originality of that child. So project method puts responsibility on the learners and gives the learner a scope for initiative. It makes the learner more pragmatic. It promotes project method, brings your student close to you. It promotes student-teacher relationship. And it makes the schoolwork clear and practicable. Then we have another method of teaching, concept mapping. Concept mapping. Concept mapping is a way of representing concepts in a group and their relationships. Concept mapping, like what I did, that a sample lesson, or let's say concept map. You can just fix your gaze on it, and 1, 2, 3, you put all those things in place instead of bulky notes. Because we give students a lot of bulky words. Notes, they sit down, read, cram, and they regurgitate it. You know, but you can use concept maps to demonstrate. You will see how we use concept maps here, very easy. So concept mapping can be used to facilitate meaningful learning. You can even use it to summarize lesson notes and assess how learners understand what related concepts. Join one concept to the other. Concept mapping is also a method of teaching. Then another method of teaching which we seem to neglect is what? Field trip. And I say when you are using a method of teaching, you need to consider what? Sometimes the cost implications. I know this one is a little expensive, but we still need it. The field trip method of what? Teaching. It offers students opportunity to study real things. How many of you ever went on a field trip when you were in school? When you were in secondary school? Field trip. This large class? Say what? Traveling. Okay, no, but I mean this one that your teacher consciously and deliberately took you out on a field trip. Where did you visit?
We visited somewhere, I think an agricultural farm. Yes, my agri teacher took all of us, prepared a little and we got there.
Field trip. Field trip is a method of teaching. It reduces what I would call abstraction. You know those abstract things we talk about in classical. But when a child goes to the site and sees those things for himself or herself, it makes your work what? Easy. Field trip. So, a well-planned field trip affords students opportunity to be actually engaged in the learning activity. Now, what factors will you consider in utilizing a field trip as a strategy? I want to warn us on this one. When you say field trip, you want to go on a field trip. Think, will that place sustain the interest of the students? Will it be suitable for the ages of the students? Will the place you are going be relevant to the objectives of your lesson? Those are things we consider. Will that place you are going produce learning? And before you go on your field trip, please, explain these objectives to the students. Explain where you are going and what they are expected to do what? Observe. Don't just say we are going on a field trip. And you know, students are very curious. Children, they just go there. And no, you have to explain. State the objectives. Why you are going there, what they are expected to learn. And discuss the trip with your principal and obtain what? Approval. That's very important. And if need be, obtain permission from what? Parents and the guardians before you embark on your field trip. Now, what are the merits of this field trip? Field trip, we are talking about creativity. It makes the students more imaginative and more inquisitive. It enables the student to have first-hand experience of the real things. Field trip. It affords the student opportunities to develop interest in careers. Field trip. It relates the thing that you study in the classroom with the actual activities that are outside the classroom. Another method of teaching, games and simulation. Simulation, when we talk of simulation is just a make-believe. You know, it's a kind of make-believe that is intended to stretch the imaginations of the learners. It makes learning. You can watch it on your phone, virtual simulations. Just log in and go to Google it, virtual simulation. It's a kind of what? It's a make-believe. Games, just like games. So you talk about simulation, games, but games involve rules. If you want to play games, like talk about this playway demonstration, those are games. Games involve rules and regulations, but in simulations, simulation is not a kind of what? Competition. It's not a kind of competition. Like he was talking yesterday, you just do simulation. You can do it in class. Just a make-believe. You know, the students actually, okay? Stay students, you play the role of a mother, you play the role of what? A father. Are they actually mother and father? No, you are trying to simulate. There's something you want to bring out. So you have in that respect, you also have virtual simulations. So merits of simulations is practical and learner-centered. It develops the power of imagination. It motivates the children to learn through participation and creating of fun. Then let's move on to ICT-enabled learning. ICT, all forms of electronic gadgets. When we talk about ICT, all forms of electronic gadgets used in broadcasting, used in telecommunications, computer-mediated communications. There are many interactive package chips and the rest. We can incorporate this into our classroom learning. Use WhatsApp. Most of these students, they have phones. Send your notes. Use, and in fact, like I was thinking, what if a biology teacher wants to teach an ecosystem? Perhaps if you have a laptop, bring it to class and tell them to watch the ecosystem. It will save you a lot of explanation. The children watch it. Before you now begin to define what ecology is, you know, ecological systems and all those things, niche, and the rest of the children, they already have an idea of what you are saying. ICT-enabled learning. Or you ask them, go home, use your parents' phone, watch an ecosystem. Those are things we need to do just to help facilitate learning. You have video clips, you have e-portal facilities, and you have what I call critical thinking motivations. Critical thinking motivations. This strategy, this one attempts to get students involved in discussion or thinking about learning material before the theory is presented. Okay, I've already said that. That's critical thinking motivation. For example, watching video films of an ecosystem before the lesson. You are trying to motivate the thinking of that child or that student. Then we have the laboratory method, which most science teachers, we are very familiar with the laboratory method. But I discovered that in recent times, we don't use lab. If you want to be honest to yourself, you're a science teacher here, and you use the lab. Just be honest. You know? Why? Because, yes, the labs, they are no longer, we say, but we can do something. That is why we are what? Teachers. We can do something. Yes, we can improvise. Where what? Necessary. You know, we teach a lot of these things in abstract. I was privileged to be in a school where we had facilities like this. What skeleton she's talking about? We had a standing skeleton there. We had aquarium. How many people have seen aquarium? Seen an aquarium?
Yes.
Yes. We had it in the lab. We had a turtle there. We had fishes inside. I don't know what is happening. I just feel that God will help us. I want to encourage us. If we are cooperative, we can bring something out of it. We even had, there was a time we had a science fair. Science fair. Physics, chemistry teacher, chemistry, biology. All the teachers came together and organized what? A science fair. Now, if I talk about distillation in chemistry, how many of our children have actually seen the distillation apparatus? Distillation. No, please, I need response. So, in chemistry, those fractional distillation that we used to do in school, and you go to the lab, the distillation apparatus is there. But now if you are teaching distillation, we are just doing the lecture method. And, you know, we don't have villages where all women, you know, those days we had all women doing and so you could watch it. When you come to class, you actually understand what your teacher is talking about. So we need, in any way we can, we need to help our students. We need to help. So I said I will give us a sample lesson plan. A sample lesson plan. Please, let's go to that place. Sample lesson plan, okay. A sample lesson plan. Comprehensive secondary school. You know, this lesson plan belongs to Mrs. Grace Appan. Her subject is what? Basic science. Her topic is what? Basics. Her class is what? JS3. The number of students she has is what? 45. But in reality, in her own, you may have up to
100.
Then the average age is what? 11 years. Date, lesson duration. No, this teacher has already taught them about acid. So what are her objectives? The child should be able to define the word base, state the sources, state the properties, explain the term alkalis with example, summarize, test a given solution for a base, prepare a base using local materials. Let's go up. Then she chooses her instructional objectives. And then the teacher chooses her instructional materials based on what? Her objectives. So she gets ashes from dry plantain cover. You know that? Dry plantain. And then she also gets ashes from palm nut bunch refuse. You know the palm nut bunch refuse? Those are local materials you can easily get. So before she teaches it, she must have gathered this plantain something and then she burns them. Is that not the role of a teacher? That's what you are trying to do. Don't wait until your principal gives you money to go for sodium hydroxide. No? Carbide waste, litmus paper, and the rest. Then the instructional approach. She's using the guided inquiry. She takes time to put this in her lesson notes. That's where I want. No, some of us we just teach. We don't. Which approach are you using? State it. Discovery, laboratory activity, cooperative learning, discussion, questioning, observation, concept mapping, use of examples. Then her reference and the rest. Now, let's go to the instructional procedure. Instructional procedure. Okay? In developing her content, introduction, the teaching technique she's using, explanation. Following the student's answers, the teacher defines bases as substances which has a soapy feeling. Substances that changes blue litmus paper red, produces hydroxyl ions, the only negative ions when dissolved in water. Students will listen. Step 2. This is where she incorporates her teaching method. She's done with step 1, explanation. Then step 2, this is a plan. After I'm done with step 1, what do I do? Step 2. What method, what technique are you using? She lists a cooperative learning, guided inquiry, laboratory method, but in the long run, she may use more than that. What does she do during that? Then the students, she groups the students, puts them where? In groups. Maybe groups of 5, and gives them the materials labeled, ashes of plantain cover, palm fruit refuse, potash, magnesium, zinc oxide. The teacher guides the student to make solutions. She has put them in groups. Let me see, teacher. She puts them where? In groups. What does she give them? The ashes. Hands off. Put it, dissolve it in what? Water. When you dissolve ashes of plantain or this thing in water, palm fruit, and you use that water, how does it feel? It's so big. Is that not a base? So that is what they are incorporate. What kind of learning is that? No, that kind of learning is what? One. Inquiry, discovery. So it is the teacher that you deliberately incorporates that technique. That's a technique. You know, nobody asked this teacher to do this. So it is just by her own. She's doing it. Yes. So she wants that child to discover something. You know, and she will tell you a base is used in the production of, base is used in the production of what? So that would make the child now ask, please, how are bases used in the production of? That's inquisitiveness. That's just what I wanted us to learn. Step 3, properties of bases. The teacher asks the students, what are the properties of bases? Following the student's answer, the teacher summarizes the properties of bases. And then don't forget, she has a red litmus paper that we use. So bases turn what? Red litmus paper blue. Who are those doing all this activity? The students. Then the teacher can use concept map. That's where this follow from me. Concept map, sources of bases. Yes. Instead of doing bulky notes, sources of bases. Oxides of alkali metals dissolved in water form bases. Ashes from local materials, dried plantain cover, palm nut bunch, refuge, potash. All these are what? Sources of bases. Properties of bases. Red litmus paper blue. Base changes red litmus paper blue. Base produces OH ions, only negative ions in water. Bases are slippery to touch. Bases are corrosive when stored in concentrated water. This is a concept map. These are those long notes. This concept map, the child can remember, since it's a picture, it's pictorial. Yes. The child remembers it. So you use concept map to tell the child the properties of bases and also the uses of what? Bases. You grow up, you see concept mapping again to show the child the uses of what? Bases. That's what we mean by what? A concept map. It reduces your lengthy notes and it makes that child to be imaginative and to think. If you ask the child to write it out, he should be able to write it what? Out. Since our curriculum is exam focused. And then at the end, the teacher does what? Evaluates based on what? The objectives. I want to pause there while I believe that the discussion so far, the several techniques, I just use about 2 techniques. I think I've talked about the inquiry approach, which I have said that the curriculum is deviating now from lecture method to what? Yes, inquiry-based teaching. No more content-based, lecture-based, lecture method. So we inculcate it. While we are planning the lesson, you sit down and plan. Actually do the planning. Plan just like women go to the market. You have a list. You are carrying 2,000 naira. You plan. Meat 200. Paper 100. You do the planning. A teacher cannot teach without what? Planning. Otherwise you are cheating the students. This frame of lesson notes. You didn't see me carry a textbook and start copying everything. No. That will just make the child to give you back. He will just vomit it, regurgitate it, and give it to us. But we are trying to see how we can change our orientation from those past patterns, since this century requires acquisition of what? Skills. Please, when you go back, those methods of teaching that we have, you may not quite appreciate them here, but as you go back and browse and read them up. There are several approaches, the multimedia approach, and read them up. So this workshop is a timely workshop, and I believe it will build our capacity to impact positively on our learners to achieve successful learning outcomes. Teachers should remember that when it comes to teaching, your technique is everything. So when it comes to teaching, my technique is everything. Can we say that?
When it comes to teaching, my technique is everything.
Again.
When it comes to teaching, my technique is everything.
Okay. So, I want, by way of evaluation, can somebody help us with the guided inquiry method of teaching? Guided inquiry method of teaching. Who can briefly tell us what he or she understands by guided inquiry method of teaching? You know, teachers, if you ask questions in class and the student don't respond, what do you do? Like it's you. Guided inquiry method of teaching. I'm going to mention somebody's name. You know I did your registration. So I know your names. If you don't lift up your hand, I'm going to mention your name. Guided or inquiry method of teaching, or you can explain any method. In the course of my explanation, that method struck you, and you want to say something about that method. Oh yes, thank you.
My name is Ibom. To the best of my knowledge, guided inquiry method is a method whereby a teacher is just a facilitator. You guide the students to understand your learning outcome. Just like we have been told, before any learning, you must have the learning outcome. So your duty as a teacher is just to guide. A teacher is a facilitator in this teaching method.
Does anyone have something to add?
Yes.
Yes.
Good morning, noble colleagues, once again, and my dear facilitator. I really want to appreciate you. You've given us a good lesson today. And talking about the guided method, what did you say? Guided method, yes. Or inquiry method is a way, a method in which the teacher provides the guideline and then hands off allows the students to perform it. Again, you can even, like what I used to do, I always have my class divided into groups. After each lesson, I will make sure I give the topic for the next lesson in class. And I will share the content of my topic to the different groups. I can give group A, you are in charge of the definition. You may not make it, you don't make proper note, just have your, something like a jotter. Take charge of the definition of the next topic. Group B, look at the importance. Group C, look at the mechanism or process of this. Group D, I share it ahead of next week. And when I come, I can use first 10 minutes, and they are going to be the ones teaching me, at least I've provided a guideline. What they say, I will, every one of you